Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jed Kennedy Coaches Show on 96.9 The Legend. I am Philip Jordan, the in-studio host and producer of Dothan Wolves football on 96.9 The Legend. Each week, Dothan Wolves head coach Jed Kennedy is joined by the voices of the Wolves, Jerry Coleman and Ken Lambert, to review the previous game and preview the upcoming matchup. When we return, Jerry and Ken will be joined by Coach Kennedy right here on 96.9 The Legend.
A coach team traveled to Albany, Georgia to face the Golden Tornadoes of Monroe Friday night, 49-27 victory. A lot of guys got to play. A lot of guys got to touch the football and score some points. I think you had 4 or 5 players over 40 yards. AJ, kind of bit AJ, almost 100 yards. Unofficially what we had, you may have had over 100 yards, but we had close to 100 yards, 3 touchdowns. And Jaden Barnes touched the ball a good bit. TJ Vickers got in there, Salanthian Meadows, and of course Sam was Sam, as he always is, brought away our quarterback. But and I think the excitement was for us, for Ken and I, Coach, was Jonathan Castillo and Braddock Jenkins was perfect all night. So that was good to hear. And Ladarius Thomas, don't want to leave him out. Touched football a few times. But just kind of your thoughts of the game Friday night from the sidelines.
Yeah, well, I think number one, we got out of it what we wanted. We got to win. I think that, as you schedule non-region opponents at the beginning of the year, you've got a few things. We talked about, last week with Childs, what we got out of it. And, I had talked to their coach before the game, and he said, Coach, we'll have as good a skill as anybody really around Albany. And man, were they fast, and they were athletic. And, just so for a chance for us to see that and compete into a game, and, they threw the ball. I think they only ran the ball 13 times. They threw it all over the place. And, I thought our starters did a great job. When the starters came out midway through the third quarter, it was 49-7. Our starting offense only ran 26 plays, 6 touchdowns. Obviously they got a couple on us at the end, but, those young kids deserve to play too. And, get a chance to get out there. They work just as hard as everybody else. And, I learned a long time ago that, early in my career, that probably would have upset me, to want to keep the numbers low. But, a win's a win. And we got a lot of, we probably had 65, 70 kids that took a snap Friday. Like I said, the kicking game has been really good with Jonathan and Braddock. In the spring, it was just okay. Both of those, Braddock's a baseball player. Castillo's a soccer kid who came out and said he wanted to try it, kicked a little bit as a freshman. And, man, the jump they have made from May till now has been just phenomenal. I mean, and certainly as the games get tougher and we get into region play, we're going to really need those. But, it was just a good all-around effort by a lot of people. I think our defense tackled well again. We covered well against really good people. The quarterback was really, really good for them. And they had 2 really good receivers that could run great routes. So, again, as I probably sound like a broken record every week when I come on here, but our goals would be a better football team when we walk off the field Friday than we did the previous week, and we did that. We played much better up front offensively on the offensive line. Again, we haven't turned the ball over on offense with our first group in there, which is something we hang our hats on. And again, we were able to stop the run on defense. So again, thought we got accomplished what we wanted to. We got the win, got a road trip under our belt, which is always good to get kind of that cobwebs of the transitioning and traveling and those things. So.
Well, Coach, you hit a lot of the points I was going to ask you about. I flashed back to last week because you said, as you were kind of looking at the matchups, you talked about our offensive line against their D-line. You felt like we had an advantage there. And I think your quote was, which makes me excited. When I go back and look at 7 touchdowns, and I didn't realize it till after the game, all on the ground, all those touchdowns on the ground. So that O-line really did a good job of actually opening up some holes, some good running. Jerry mentioned Sam. I thought he had a great 40-yard touchdown run where he could have run out of bounds 2 times, and I think that's kind of what deked the defense. They thought he was going to run out, and he took it back to the hash and scored a touchdown there. So great job by that O-line up front.
Yeah, and as they should, right? I mean, we've talked about it all along. We've got Myquan Williams, returning starter, Southern Miss commit. At the outside tackle. The inside tackles, Aiden Jackson, has multiple Division I offers. His biggest offer is probably Colorado State. You've got Lewis Snell, who's a 2-year starter, 6'4", 300 pounds. He's got 5 or 6 offers, and he'll be able to play Division I football. And, We've got a new center, Ricky Charles, who really, what's crazy, has been one of our most consistent players the last 2 weeks. And then, on the left side, we've got Pate Pritchett and a Don Warren taking snaps at guard, and Jacoby Allen, who started 4 games for us at guard the previous year at tight end. So there's a lot of starts between those group of 6 or 7 players already. So we expect them to play well. And, I think we've got to continue to get better at our pass protection. It seems like every now and then, on one of our longer routes, we let somebody get through. But like I said, I thought we were better at it this week than we were last week, but something we continue to work on this week. Obviously for tomorrow's game, as Enterprise has got some great pass rushers.
Yeah, I had noted also, you talk about protecting the football, and I knew we had not turned it over in terms of a fumble on the ground. In fact, I think the other night, I believe it was AJ that was running the ball. They were trying to tackle the ball instead of him, and I think I told Jerry, I said he just kept running. Actually, I think that's where it almost ended up in a scuffle there, because they were trying to take the ball away from him, and he wasn't giving it up. So you knew how well he was protecting the football.
And I think that, if you look at any level of football, the really 2 numbers we look at here are not turning the ball over on offense, creating turnovers on defense. That's all about getting extra possessions and eliminating extra possessions. And the second thing is, are we winning on 3rd down on offense, and are we winning on 3rd down on defense? And I think those are really the 2 things, and both of those things equate to winning and equate to scoring points and preventing points when you're on defense. And through 2 weeks, we've done that. Obviously, it's going to get tougher tomorrow night with the quality of opponent we got coming in. I know we'll talk about that in a little bit, but this is you just talk about building a program and building things each year. And, this is year 3 with this staff, and, everything's just better. And it's, we obviously lost some really good players from last year, and you get to the point where you just plug different kids in because that's what good programs do. And, so we've had kids that have graduated and move on, and some of those kids are playing college football, and we miss those kids like crazy, but we've had people step up and take their spot. If you look at, Aaron Scott playing linebacker, for Marcus Myers, who's at Tuskegee, and you have, Kason Booth stepping in, playing receiver for Jalen Corb, who's at Kentucky State. You've got King Hall stepping in for Kavion Dury, who was one of the best corners in 7A last year. And I think that's a sign of a program and building things. And, just want to take this moment just to kind of, Will Garner's done an unbelievable job as our special teams coordinator. I know we touched on them earlier, but I mean, we've had really, really good special teams these first 2 games. And I think something that obviously we're going to need to continue as we get into region play, and obviously our level opponents get a lot tougher.
Yeah. Coach, you mentioned Dury and of course King and we talked a lot about Asim White a little bit Friday night. It looks like Coach Herring kind of went underneath passing wise. Like I said, didn't run the ball much, but kind of threw it underneath to 2 well-skilled receivers. Actually 3 they had, I think, at Monroe. You're going to face that tomorrow night. We'll talk more about that, but talk a little bit about that change of from a defensive back standpoint. You lost Dury, but you got Asim in there and you got King. Talk a little bit about how they developed these first 2 games, getting ready for what is going to go against a team that's going to throw the football, or most likely have to throw the football tomorrow night.
Well, I think, we have 2 kids, Tavarian Knight, TK we call him, and Asim White. Those are both 2-year starters. Those kids have started 23 football games here going into their senior year. So those kids have played a lot of football against a lot of really good people. And, a King Hall at corner, I mean, if you look at him, you would never say that kid's a sophomore. He is a big kid. He's 6'1", 185 pounds. He runs. He's going to be a scholarship power forward corner. He is special. He's good. He's long. You have people that look the part. He looks the part. And now that he's looked the part, he plays the part. And then, the other safety has been, kind of a little bit of by committee. Jaden Barnes takes snaps over there. We all know what kind of player he was on offense for us, played some defense last year. And then sophomore Kerry Gatlin, who's really as talented a kid as we have in our program right now. And it seems like every rep he gets, it's just that maturation process of, 7A football. You don't have, you have to be dialed in every rep in practice. You have to be dialed in every rep in game. You can't take plays off. And when you get kids like that, I would bet Kerry his entire life has probably been the most talented kid on the field. Well, now when you go play people who are committed to Auburn and committed to Clemson, and you're only a sophomore, there's people more talented than you. And, you have to make sure you're dialed in, and he's done a great job, and we're excited about him. And, I just think we've got a really good mix of young and old players. I mean, you look at our defense right now, we're starting 3 sophomores, and all 3 of those are special players. Jadavius Lamine at linebacker is going to be a bad man before it's all said and done. He has been really, really good, and we knew that. I mean, he's really, really young. I think he could probably only be a freshman with how old he is, but just a great kid. And, again, we start the corner and start the safety that are also sophomores. So I just think a great mix of kids right now, and our seniors who started a lot of games, sophomores who have kind of just kind of starting to get themselves into this program. And then you got players, like Zach Walker's a 2-year starter back, Gabe Smith's back, Ezekiel Scott started for 2 years, Zaya Barra started as a sophomore. So I think it's just a great blend in our program of a lot of starts, kids we knew when they became older would be great players who are now getting their opportunity, and then young kids coming in that are playing. And I think, again, it just goes back to the development of players in our program. And I think that our staff and our strength program has done a great job of doing that.
Well, Coach, we're going to take a quick timeout. When we come back, we will talk about tomorrow night's game where the Enterprise Wildcats come in for the Wiregrass rival at Rip Hughes Stadium. Kickoff at 7, pregame 6:45 here on 96.9 The Legend.
96.9 The Legend is your connection to classic country legends. But Digio Strategies has other options too. News Talk 103.9 is your source for America's top news and entertainment shows like Rick and Bubba in the morning, Glenn Beck from 9 till 11 a.m., and Clay Travis and Buck Sexton middays from 11 a.m. till 2 p.m. Sean Hannity, Lars Larson, Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, and others fill your day with the latest news and views from America's top conservative voices. America at Night and Coast to Coast AM keep you company and connected throughout the night. Plus, Fox News, the Alabama Radio Network, and Wiregrass Daily News keep you informed with national, international, state, and local news. And with more musical choices like All the Hits 106.7 KMX, Today's Country 95.5 WTVY, and Music 107.7, Digio Strategies gives you more choices and more variety. Listen on air, online, and on our apps. 96.9 The Legend is just the beginning.
Welcome back to the Jed Kennedy Coaches Show here on 96.9 The Legend. Coach, tomorrow night at Rip Hughes Stadium, Ben Blackman brings in the Wildcats of Enterprise, who, just like the Wolves, are 2-0. Of course, the Alabama Sports Writers listed, I don't know if it's fortunate or unfortunately, but out of the 7 teams, I think in the top 7, 5 of them come out of our region. And then, of course, the first one, first 3 is one of those is what we're facing tomorrow night. What do you expect what Coach Blackman to bring in tomorrow night?
Well, obviously he's bringing in a team that has high expectations. I think ranked, second in the sports writers poll, and 4 or 5 and a few other polls, and in every poll ranked above us. But it is what it is. we don't get caught up in those kind of things. We just worry about ourselves. They've got some star power with Eric Winters, who's a Auburn commit, and Andrew Purcell, who's a Kentucky commit, and then they got a transfer, Zion Grady, and it is what it is. We what's funny is it's kind of like last year's story. I don't think many people gave us a chance going into that one last year either, over at their place, and they were ranked above us last year going into that game. And you know what, it was the Wolves that came out with the victory on the road, and just a huge win for our program. So again, we obviously know we've got our work cut out for us. We've had a great week of practice. I tell people all the time, you don't get ready for games like this on Sunday for this week. We get ready for games like this from the end of last season, all off season, with how we practice and how we prepare and those types of things. So it's, we don't, we talk about it all the time. Our goal is to worry about ourselves and worry about the Dothan Wolves. If we do that, everything else will fall in place. And that's kind of been our motto here since we've come here. And, the thing that excites me, where we're probably in a different position right now, is we've won a lot of really big football games the last 2 years, and we've been in a lot of really good football games against good teams. So if you think about, the win down at Foley 2 years ago, winning at Enterprise last year, losing in double overtime to Auburn at our place, the two games we've had against Opelika the last 2 years, going down to Baker, they were ranked 5th in the state last year, down 7-0, coming back and beating them in the second half. So we've been in big games, and we talk about our first year here. We talk about as coaches when we played Enterprise the first time. That first year, it was like the first big game that those kids have been in where it was a big game where it had meant something other than the rivalry. And as coaches, to me, and this is no disrespect towards anybody, the rivalry part to me is the least important part of this whole thing. Obviously, when you have two big 7A schools, we're the only two schools that are big like this in this part of the state. We're 30 miles away from each other. That's the rivalry part of it. But this game's a big game. For me, for different reasons, and I think for our kids understand that it's the team that wins tomorrow night is going to have a leg up in the region standings. The team that doesn't is going to have a leg down and going to have some, obviously some work cut out for them. So it's, that's why, for me, it's a big game. And my job as the head coach is to make sure that our players understand that. And they do, like I said, this isn't the first big game we've played in. It won't be the last. And, like I said, we've had a great week of practice. We've had a physical week of practice. We're pretty healthy for the most part. And again, I think it's a unique game that it's, last year we played the 8th game of the year. And then by that point, there's kind of already separation in the region of who's where. And I think Central had kind of put themselves as the dominant 1 seed, probably in the state, also in our region. And there was kind of 3 or 4 other teams battling for those last couple spots. And we were one of them. And you could kind of see, hey, we both played this team. How do we match up? Those things. There's none of that. I mean, we both played 2 non-region games. I think both of us were probably significantly better than the teams we played. So I think that we're both going to probably have some things that we haven't shown this year. It's just a whole different element than what it was the last 2 years. But the one thing that hasn't changed is it's obviously has a lot riding on it outside of the rivalry.
Coach, again, I think you've been reading my notes because that was one of the questions. We played them the 8th game of the season last year. Now we're moving up to 3. Do you like playing them earlier in the year than a little bit later?
I don't know. I guess I think when you look at our region, it's like you look in there and say, okay, we play obviously Enterprise this week, and next week we got the number 1 team in the state in Central, and then after that we got the number 7 team in the state in Carver. So, we go 2-1-7 3 weeks in a row, but then, Auburn or, Enterprise goes the number 5 team in state, the number 3 team in state, and then I think the number 1 team in state. So you can't, it's crazy. The depth of talent, the depth of coaching, the depth of major Power 4 recruits in our region right now is it's crazy. It's, I look back, it's always been really, really hard. But this is the most talented, deepest our region has ever been. I know since my time prior to coming to Dothan and being involved in this region now for the 6th season, it's brutal, but brutal in a good way. I think you got to play these people anyways. It's good football every week in our region. It's fun to be a part of. You can't have nights off. You can't have days off at practice. There's no off weeks. You've got to be dialed in. You've got to be on 24/7. And I think that, our program loves those types of things. We love games like that. I just think it shows the maturation of where our program has come in the last 2.5 years. I don't know if when we came here 2.5 years ago, if we exactly looked at our schedule and tried to find out when we played the big dogs because we wanted to play them.
Yeah. Yeah. One word you mentioned was physical. And that's one thing I remember about last year's game. We come out on top 2-1-14. I distinctly remember 2 different times I thought Sam Broadway would probably not go back into the game after taking a couple of shots. I assume you anticipate another physical game tomorrow night.
Yeah, I think that, they're obviously very physical. They've, they returned 4 starters on the offensive line. They've got kids back on the defensive line. They've got good linebackers. You look at us, we returned 4 out of 6 on our offensive line. We've got a big offensive line, a physical offensive line. I think our front 7 on defense is as good as we've had here the last 3 years. So I think it lends itself to not only the schemes that we run, but the style of play that both teams run, that it's going to be a physical football game. And I think when you add the weather in there, it's just going to make it that much more interesting. And I mean, just what a heavyweight tilt for this part of the state. And, you know, what's crazy is when you sit back and, you know, you sit and look at it, you know, when we took this job over 3 years ago, and we knew where this program could get, and we, you know, obviously still believe that. And I think we're just scratching the surface of where we can go. But, you know, the fact that when you have a rivalry game that also has two top 5 or top 6 ranked teams in the state playing, man, what an awesome thing to be a part of. I mean, just for our kids, for our community, for our, you know, for our fan base, for the city of Dothan, for Dothan City Schools, for Dothan High, the list goes on and on and on. You know, just awesome to be a part of a place that, you know, is involved in big football games, and not everybody gets to be a part of that. You know, it's because the one part is you got to be winning, and both of these programs have won, you know, football games the last couple of years, and Enterprise probably the last, you know, 4 or 5 years have, you know, been a playoff team. So, like I said, we're certainly excited, and I know our kids are going to play well.
Well, Coach, to wrap up our show for tonight, don't forget tomorrow night, 6:45 pregame. You might want to get there early, folks, because it's going to be a big crowd on both sides. First against Childs, I think it was our home side was full to capacity, but you will want to either get your ticket on gofan.com or get to the ticket gate early to get in for the pregame. I don't know who they're recognizing during pregame, but Coach Noble always has a pregame set up with some folks from previous Northview or Dothan graduates that'll be recognized at pregame. Thank you for listening to the Jed Kennedy Coaches Show here on 96.9 The Legend.